Stieg Larsson's Millennium trilogy, and more specifically the first book, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, has become one of those major publishing phenomena of recent times, like Twilight, or Harry Potter, or 50 Shades of Grey, where even if you haven't read the book, you probably know at least something about the plot.
Yeah, and when a book becomes that big, it inevitably gets turned into a movie.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily get turned into a graphic novel.
Well, you've got to ask, you know, when it starts off in the printed medium as a novel and then becomes a movie, what's going to be added by changing it into a graphic novel? And more importantly, I think you need to ask, is the story going to fit into this format?
And in the case of Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the answer is no. No, it does not.
Well, look, I do agree with you, but why don't you tell us why, Sonia?
Okay, so let's start with the story, shall we? Good place to start. Now, this is an incredibly dense narrative book. It features a lot of people talking, sitting and talking, standing and talking, walking and talking, thinking about talking.
Yeah.
So one begins to wonder, how is that going to work in a graphic novel?
Well, yeah, that was actually my concern before I even opened this one. I have read the original novel, and I was thinking back and going, how is this actually going to work?
Yeah, and largely it doesn't. And I don't blame the writer, Denise Mina. I mean, she's got a great body of work behind her. She's a prolific crime writer as well as doing work on Hellblazer.
Yeah.
It's just, it seems to me like it was one of those projects that was kind of doomed from the start.
Yeah, well, I mean, the style of story that we've got here, coupled with the restrictions that the format puts on it, it ends up with a story that feels not only rushed, but also somehow quite boring.
Yeah, a little tedious.
It's an odd couplet.
It is. Okay, so but for people who maybe don't know the story, we should probably
Sure.
a few little plot
Yeah,
points.
let's do that.
Okay, so Girl with the Dragon Tattoo follows a financial journalist called Mikael Blomqvist, and he gets hired to investigate a 40-year-old murder.
Yeah, at the same time it follows a girl named Lisbeth Salander, who's an investigator, and also has Asperger's syndrome, which is an autism-related disorder that manifests often in high levels of intelligence, but also in lack of empathy and a difficulty with social cues.
Now, see, on that, from reading the graphic novel, I would not know that about Lisbeth. From what I get in the graphic is that she's a bit withdrawn, she's a bit depressed, she likes to wear a lot of black, but that's it.
See, but that's one of these problems in the format that I honestly don't really blame them that much for.
No.
The fact is, when you've got to tell this much story in this format, you don't really have that much time to go into character personalities, so a lot of that has to rest on the artwork.
That's right.
And unlike the cover art by Lee Bermejo, which is honestly,
spectacular.
It's really, really good. I was quite excited when I saw that. I don't think the artwork inside is really up to the task.
No, now look, I do like some of the compositions, I like some of the framing, especially like the environments that Leonardo Manco and Andrea Mutti have created.
Yeah.
But there's a problem when it comes to character faces. There's not enough nuance, and there's a big problem with consistency. A lot of the faces you're kind of going through going, wait, is that Mikael or
they
is
can
that
often be
somebody
a
else?
little interchangeable,
They
which
were,
was
yeah.
unfortunate. But look, I would like to take this moment to state the thing that was the biggest bother for me,
Okay.
that caused me the most problem, is that there are only 2 moments in this that are actually moments of action, and they both revolve around sexual violence. Now, I'm not saying they should have been left out. They're actually quite important to the story. They're important factors. But in this sort of format, when that's the only action that we get in it, it just puts too much focus on them. And in this style, it ended up almost being the whole point of the book.
It really does. Like, I know when I kind of closed the book and was thinking about it, that was the thing that stuck in my mind the most, which it shouldn't.
Not really.
But the problem is when you've got so many static frames of, like we said, people just sitting there and talking. When you get a couple of pages of this, because it's quite spread out.
Goes on
very graphic rape. That's all that you can think of, and it's not balanced with the rest of the book. This graphic only takes in half of the actual novel as well, so there's something wrong there. It doesn't
Well, that
quite
was
flow.
the problem. I mean, in the actual novel, there's a lot more action near the end.
Yeah,
that
so
kind of
it balances it.
it balances out, exactly. And where they halved it as well, that was also a problem.
It was perplexing.
It was frankly a bit bizarre.
It was.
Where they cut it off, because there's no real climax there, and there's not even any sense of cliffhanger or anything like that. I actually found myself flipping back and forward on that last page going, did I miss something?
It's a bit missing.
What's the point? I don't get it.
Yeah, I know. Look, adaptations of novels or movies or TV shows are notoriously difficult, especially when it's got such a huge fan base.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo just doesn't have what it needed to be a great graphic novel in itself. I'm going to be very harsh. I'm sorry, but it is such a big book. I'm giving it a berry.
Okay, look, it's harsh, but it's fair. I mean, I was concerned when we actually saw on the back cover, there's a whole bunch of endorsements about the novel.
Book. Yeah.
You know, and I just went, well, that's disingenuous to start with, because this isn't the novel. This is a graphic novel, and honestly, an ill-conceived one that I don't think should have been green-lit.
No, neither do I.
Again, I don't blame the creative team overall.
Not at all.
There were a few flaws, but could have been easily overlooked. I just don't think it suited the format at all. So, yeah, I'm going to give this one a berry as well.
Sad.
I'm going to go back, read the novel.
Yeah.
Might see the film as well.
Okay.
It's supposed to be good.